They said the Vale Mansion was cursed. A billionaire bride vanished on her wedding night, and every Halloween her ghost returns to dance with the one she loved. But this year, someone new has stepped into the mansion, and the past isn't ready to let go. The Billionaire's Haunted Bride, where love never dies, and forever means forever.
The mansion on the hill had always stood apart from the town below, a vast estate of marble and glass, surrounded by dark pine trees that whispered whenever the wind changed. Most people in the small town of Ravenwood had never seen its owner, but they all knew his name, Damian Vale, the young billionaire who'd lost his bride 10 years ago on their wedding night. They said she vanished inside the mansion and was never seen again. Some whispered she ran away. Others said her spirit never left. But Lila Hart didn't believe in ghost stories. She was 24, quiet and hard-working, a maid in that very house for nearly a year. Every morning she polished the crystal stair rails, dusted the grand piano, and watched the sunrise from behind the tall glass windows. She'd never spoken much to Mr. Vale. He was a man of few words, always in black, always distant. Yet whenever he passed her in the hall, there was something in his eyes, a quiet sorrow, and something else she couldn't name. On the morning of October 31st, the mansion felt different. The air carried a stillness like the pause before thunder. When Lila entered the dining hall to set the table, she noticed an envelope waiting on the silver tray. Her name was written in perfect gold ink. Miss Lila Hart, it read. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a cream-colored card, thick and perfumed faintly with roses. You are cordially invited to the Vale Mansion Halloween Ball, tonight at 8 o'clock. Dress formal and masked. Lila blinked. There hadn't been a ball in the mansion for 10 years, not since the bride had vanished. All day she tried to focus on her chores, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the invitation. Every servant had received one, yet most whispered that they wouldn't dare attend. Too many strange things happen in the mansion on Halloween night. Doors that closed by themselves, music from empty rooms, reflections that didn't quite match. By sunset, the mansion was transformed. Candles flickered in golden holders. Velvet curtains shimmered crimson. A grand chandelier cast diamonds of light across the marble floor. The staff who did attend wore masks of feathers and lace, their laughter soft and uneasy. Lila borrowed a gown from the storage room, a forgotten white silk dress with tiny pearl buttons. She tied a simple silver mask across her face and entered the ballroom, her heart pounding. Damian Vale stood at the far end of the room. Tall, composed, his dark suit perfectly cut, his mask black as shadow. He greeted his guests with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. When his gaze fell on Lila, he froze. For a heartbeat, he seemed unable to look away. "Miss Hart," he said finally, his voice deep and smooth. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I was invited, sir," she said softly. Yes, I suppose I did." They danced once, surrounded by glittering lights and music that seemed older than time. His hand was warm against hers, and for the first time Lila saw something break in his expression. A man haunted not by ghosts, but by guilt. When the clock struck 11, the air shifted. The lights flickered. Somewhere deep in the mansion, a door creaked open. Damian's grip on her hand tightened. "You should go," he said quietly, his eyes darkening. "Why?" she whispered. "Because she comes at midnight." Before Lila could ask who he meant, The chandelier flickered again, and a chill swept across the ballroom. Guests shivered. The music faltered. Somewhere high above the hall, a woman's voice laughed, soft, broken, echoing through the walls. The laughter grew louder, closer, until the candles trembled in their holders. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Everyone turned toward the grand staircase. A woman stood there, pale as moonlight, wearing a wedding gown stained with crimson roses. Her veil shimmered with dust, and her eyes glowed faintly blue. "Damian," she whispered, "you promised me forever." Lila's breath caught in her throat. Damian's face went white. "Not tonight," he said under his breath. The woman tilted her head, her ghostly eyes fixing on Lila. "Who wears my dress?" she asked softly. The music died, and the guests vanished one by one, as if swallowed by shadows, leaving only Lila and Damian and the ghostly bride beneath the trembling chandelier. And as the clock began to strike midnight, Lila realized she couldn't move. Her feet were frozen to the marble floor. The bride smiled. "Welcome to the ball," she whispered.
The clock struck 12. Each chime echoed through the grand hall like a heartbeat fading into silence. The candles burned lower, their flames trembling. Lila stood motionless, her breath shallow beneath her silver mask. She wanted to move, to run, but her body refused to obey. Across the room, Damian Vale faced the ghostly bride. His face was ashen, his jaw tight with pain. "Eleanor," he whispered. The spirit smiled, a smile both beautiful and cruel. "You remember my name?" Her voice floated through the air like smoke. "Do you remember your promise?" Lila's heart thudded painfully in her chest. She could feel the cold radiating from the ghost, chilling the room like frost on glass. Damian took a hesitant step forward. "Eleanor," he said, again softer now, "you don't belong here." "Neither do you," she replied. "You never left me, Damian. You just stopped seeing me." Her laughter rang out, sharp, brittle, breaking the silence. The chandelier above them flickered once more, scattering shards of light that danced across the marble floor. Lila finally found her voice. "Mr. Vale," she whispered, her lips trembling. "Who is she?" The ghost turned, her veil drifting like smoke around her. "Who am I?" she repeated, almost amused. "I am your wife, your only bride." Lila froze. Damian's gaze dropped to the floor. "She's not alive, Lila," he said quietly. "She hasn't been for 10 years. Eleanor's eyes glowed brighter. "And yet I wait," she said, her voice turning hollow. "Every year, on the night I died, I wait for my husband to keep his vow." Lila swallowed hard, her mind spinning. "You died? How?" The ghost tilted her head. "A fall, from the grand staircase. Some say it was an accident. Some say it wasn't." Her gaze cut to Damian, who flinched. Lila felt her heart tighten. "You think he?" Eleanor smiled sadly. "It doesn't matter what I think. The truth lives in this house. It breathes through every wall." She looked at Lila again, eyes narrowing. "Tell me, girl, do you love him?" Lila's face went hot. She didn't answer. But silence was enough. The ghost's expression hardened. "Then you should know, this mansion does not forgive.
Every woman who dares to love him suffers my fate." Suddenly the air shifted. The walls seemed to hum. Lila felt something cold brush against her neck, like invisible fingers. She gasped and stumbled back. Damian stepped between them. "Eleanor, please, it's not her fault." Eleanor's voice dropped to a whisper. "Then whose fault is it, Damian? Yours or mine?" The lights flickered violently. Portraits on the wall rattled. From the piano, unseen hands struck a single note, deep and hollow. Lila clutched the edge of a nearby chair. "What's happening?" Damian turned to her, eyes pleading. "She's bound to this night, to me. Every year she returns, angry, lost, and every year she tries to take someone in my place." Lila's heart pounded. "Take someone?" Eleanor's laughter filled the hall again. "He doesn't tell you everything, does he?" she said, circling them slowly. "He made a wish the night I died. He wished for time to stop, for our wedding night never to end, and it didn't." She raised her hand, and the air shimmered like heat over stone. She saw flashes, a memory, a vision of a younger Damian and Eleanor dancing under that same chandelier, her gown untouched, his eyes bright. Then a scream, the sound of glass shattering, a body falling. The vision vanished as quickly as it came. Lila gasped. You cursed him?" Eleanor smiled faintly. "No, child, he cursed himself." The clock chimed once more, one soft, broken note. The ghost's form began to fade, her voice echoing as her figure dissolved into the flickering light. "Until he loves without guilt, until the mansion forgets." Then she was gone. The room was still again, the air thick with the scent of roses and something colder, regret. Lila turned to Damian. "Is it true?" she whispered. "Did you wish for time to stop?" He looked at her for a long moment, his eyes shadowed. "I wished," he said softly, "for her to never leave me. I didn't understand what that meant until it was too late." He turned toward the staircase where the ghost had stood. "Every year she returns. Every year I try to set her free." "And does it ever work?" asked Lila. "No," he said, voice breaking, "because each year she finds someone new to hate." Outside, thunder rolled across the hills, the windows rattled. Lila took a step closer to him. "Then we'll end it," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "This curse, this house, it has to stop." Damian looked at her with something between hope and fear. "If we try," he said slowly, "we may not survive the night." Lila held his gaze. "Then let's not waste it." But neither of them noticed the faint reflection in the glass behind them, a white figure, watching, smiling, her hand pressed to the window.
The storm outside had grown fierce. Rain lashed against the tall windows, and lightning flashed over the hills, casting ghostly shadows across the marble floors. The ballroom was empty now. The guests had vanished, the music gone. Only Lila and Damian remained, two figures in a house that no longer felt alive. Lila followed Damian as he led her down a long corridor, lined with portraits of people whose eyes seemed to follow her every step. The air grew colder with every turn. "Where are we going?" she asked softly. "To the east wing," he replied, his voice low. "There's something I need to show you."
They passed through double doors into a narrow hallway. The walls were mirrored from floor to ceiling, reflecting their movements in endless repetition. Candlelight flickered on the glass, creating 1,000 ghostly versions of themselves. "This," Damian said, stopping before a large gilt-framed mirror at the end of the corridor, "is where it began." Lila looked up at the mirror. It was taller than a man and framed in silver, carved with roses and tiny winged cherubs. The surface was flawless, too flawless. When she peered into it, her reflection didn't move quite in time with her own gestures. "What is this place?" she whispered. Damian's jaw tightened. "Eleanor's room," he said. "She used to sit here for hours, brushing her hair. She loved mirrors, said they were doors to forgotten worlds." "And now?" He hesitated. "Now, they're her prison." Before she could ask what he meant, the air in the corridor seemed to shift. The mirror rippled like water disturbed by a breeze. Lila gasped and stepped back. "Did you see that?" Damian nodded grimly. "I know. It happens every year. The veil between her world and ours grows thinner." Lightning flashed again, illuminating the hallway. For a moment, Lila saw movement in the mirror, a figure in white standing just behind Damian, but when she turned, no one was there. Her voice trembled. "She's here." "I know," he said softly. The figure appeared again, clearer this time. Eleanor's ghost stood on the other side of the mirror, her face pale but beautiful, her eyes glistening with something that might have been sorrow. "Damian," she said, her voice echoing faintly through the glass. "You brought her here." Lila's heart raced. "She's trapped in there?" Damian nodded. "When she died, something bound her to this reflection. Every mirror in the mansion shows a piece of her. I've tried to destroy them all, but whenever I do, they return." Eleanor's lips curved into a faint smile. "You can't destroy what you created, my love." Damian took a step forward. "Eleanor, let her go. She has nothing to do with us." "On the contrary," the ghost said, tilting her head toward Lila. "She looks just like me, when I was alive." Lila's pulse quickened. "That's impossible!" "Is it?" Eleanor whispered. "He finds the same face every time, every year. Every woman who works here ends up wearing my gown, standing where I once stood." Lila turned to Damian in disbelief. "She's lying, right?" Damian's silence was answer enough. Tears stung her eyes. "You knew?" "I didn't want to believe it," he said hoarsely. "But the mansion, it calls the same spirit back. I thought I could change the ending." Eleanor's laughter rang softly through the corridor. "And yet you never do." The mirror began to glow faintly, its surface rippling again. Lila saw shadows moving inside, glimpses of ballroom lights, a wedding veil, the reflection of a man kneeling beside a broken staircase. "Come," Eleanor said gently. "Come and see what really happened." Lila shook her head. "No." But the pull was strong, magnetic. The reflection reached for her, shimmering like water. She felt her body lean forward against her will. Damian caught her hand. "Lila, don't." The ghost smiled. "If you love her, let her know the truth." A blinding flash of lightning filled the corridor, and in that instant the mirror swallowed her reflection whole. Lila screamed, not from pain, but from the icy shock of falling through air. When she opened her eyes, she was standing in another ballroom, the same, yet not. The lights were brighter, the air warm and filled with laughter. Music played. guests danced, and on the grand staircase a bride in white descended, smiling at her groom. Lila looked down at herself. She was wearing the same gown, her hands trembling. "Where am I?" she whispered. From behind her, a familiar voice answered, gentle, sorrowful. "You're in the night that never ended." She turned. Damian stood there, younger, radiant, holding a ring in his hand. But he looked right through her, his gaze fixed on Eleanor. Her heart pounded. She wasn't in the present anymore. She was inside the memory. And as the bride reached the bottom of the stairs, the laughter faded, replaced by a scream that pierced the air. Then everything went dark.
The air shimmered with golden light. Music filled the ballroom, a hauntingly beautiful waltz that echoed through the high ceilings. Guests in elegant masks laughed and danced beneath a chandelier that glowed like a fallen star. Lila stood in the middle of it all, her breath catching in her throat. Everything was alive again, the party, the laughter, the warmth. But something inside her whispered that it wasn't real. She wasn't in the mansion anymore. She was inside its memory. Across the room, Damian Vale, younger, vibrant, free from the weight of sorrow, held his bride in his arms. Eleanor Vale looked radiant, her golden hair gleaming under the light, her smile full of life. Lila watched as they twirled across the marble floor. The crowd cheered when Damian lifted Eleanor's hand and kissed it tenderly. "I swear," he said softly, loud enough for Lila to hear, "this night will never end." Eleanor laughed, her voice sweet and trusting. "You always say things you can't promise, Damian." "I mean it," he said, brushing her cheek. "I'd give anything to freeze this moment, to keep you like this forever." The orchestra swelled. The music seemed to slow, and for a heartbeat, everything shimmered, the guests, the lights, even the air. Lila felt the energy change. The mansion itself seemed to breathe. She tried to move, but her body felt heavy, as if invisible hands held her still. Then, from the shadows near the staircase, a tall man in black suit appeared, someone Lila had never seen before. His face was hidden beneath a half-mask of silver. He watched Damian and Eleanor intently, his expression unreadable. Eleanor turned, noticing him. Her smile faltered. "Damian," she whispered, "who is that?" Damian followed her gaze, and for the first time Lila saw a flicker of fear cross his face. "He shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "Stay close to me." But the stranger was already moving toward them. Lila's heart thudded. She didn't belong in this memory, yet she could feel the danger, as if it were happening now. The music dimmed. Guests began to whisper. The air thickened. The man in silver stopped before Damian. "You've made a wish tonight," he said, his voice calm, too calm, "and you'll pay for it." Damian stepped protectively in front of his bride. "Who are you?" The stranger smiled faintly. "Someone who grants what is asked for and takes what is owed." Eleanor clutched Damian's arm. "Damian, let's go." But the man raised a gloved hand. "You asked for this night to never end," he said softly, "and so it won't." The chandelier flickered. The air turned cold. A gust of wind swept through the hall, extinguishing the candles. Guests screamed as the lights died, leaving only the glow from the storm outside. Lila tried to move, to reach them, but she was frozen, trapped between past and present.
Lightning flashed, and in that brief light she saw Eleanor on the staircase, her hands slipping from the railing, her eyes wide with terror. Damian lunged forward. "Eleanor!" She fell. Her body hit the marble floor with a sickening sound that echoed through Lila's bones. The music stopped. The guests vanished into smoke. Damian knelt beside his wife, his trembling hands brushing her hair from her face. "Please," he whispered, "don't leave me." The man in silver watched silently from the shadows. "You wanted forever," he said. "Now you have it." He turned and disappeared into the darkness. Lila screamed, though no sound came out. She felt the mansion twist around her, mirrors cracking, walls closing in. Damian pressed his forehead to Eleanor's, sobbing. "I'll fix it," he whispered. "I'll bring you back." He lifted his face toward the broken chandelier, his eyes wild. "Do you hear me? I'll do anything." Then everything shattered. The memory dissolved, the music faded. Lila fell backward through the mirror surface, gasping as cold air hit her skin. She stumbled into the dark corridor, coughing, her hands shaking. Damian was there, the real Damian, older now, eyes full of guilt. He caught her before she fell. "Lila, are you hurt?" She shook her head, trembling. "I saw it. I saw what happened." His face tightened. "You saw her fall." "I saw what happened," she whispered. "She didn't just fall. That man, the one in silver, he cursed you both." Damian's expression darkened. "I've spent 10 years trying to find him, but every Halloween the curse begins again." Lightning flashed outside, and for a brief moment she saw their reflections in the mirror, not 2, but 3. Eleanor stood between them, her pale face calm, her eyes soft. "Forever means forever," the ghost whispered. Then the glass cracked, spiderwebbing from edge to edge. Damian pulled Lila away just as the mirror exploded, shards scattering across the floor like diamonds. When the storm quieted, they stood surrounded by silence and a faint sound of a woman's laughter fading down the hall.
The storm had calmed to a whisper by dawn, but the mansion still groaned as if alive. Wind brushed through the cracked windows, carrying the faint scent of rain and roses. Lila and Damian stood among the shattered remains of the mirror. The silver frame lay twisted, reflecting fragments of their faces in its broken glass. "She won't stop," Damian said quietly. "Every time I try to destroy her reflection, she finds another." Lila knelt and picked up a shard. Her reflection stared back, pale, frightened, determined. "Then we need to end it at the source. We need to find the man in silver." Damian shook his head. "If he's real, he's not of this world. He was death in disguise, or something worse." "Maybe so," Lila said, rising to face him. "But he made a bargain with you, didn't he?" Damian's eyes darkened. "A bargain I never understood." Lightning flickered once more beyond the windows. Somewhere deep in the house, a door creaked open. The sound was faint, like an invitation. Lila glanced toward the corridor. "Where does that door lead?" "The West Wing," Damian said slowly. "It's been sealed since that night." "Then that's where we start." He hesitated. "If we go there, she'll follow us." Lila met his gaze. "Then we'll face her together." The hallway beyond the door was long and unlit, the wallpaper peeling, the air heavy with the scent of damp wood and forgotten things.
Their footsteps echoed as they moved deeper inside. Candles on the wall flickered to life as they passed, one by one, as though the mansion itself was waking up. At the end of the hall stood another mirror, older than the rest, framed in black iron instead of gold. Its surface rippled faintly, like dark water. "This is it," Damian whispered. "The first one, the one she died beside." As he reached out to touch it, the glass glowed faintly red. A voice echoed from within, low, soft, dangerous. "Back again, Mr. Vale?" The sound froze Lila's blood. It wasn't Eleanor, it was him. Damian's voice shook. "Show yourself." From within the mirror, the faint outline of a man appeared, tall in a silvern mask, his figure blurred by mist. "You made your wish, and you have lived it, year after year. Are you ready to pay the rest of the price?" Damian's fists clenched. "You took her life. You turned this house into a prison." The figure laughed softly. "No, Damian Vale. You did that, with your love too desperate to let go." Lila stepped forward, her voice steady. "What do you want from him?" The man's eyes, or what looked like eyes, glowed faintly behind the mask. "The curse ends only when one of them chooses. Either the living releases the dead, or the dead takes the living's place." Lila's heart stopped. "You mean one of them must stay?" "Balance. Love always demands it." Eleanor's reflection began to form beside his. She looked sad now, not angry. Her ghostly fingers brushed the glass. "Damian, you can end this. Let me go." Damian's breath trembled. "Eleanor, But before he could finish, the glass cracked again, and Lila saw something flicker across Eleanor's face, not rage, but fear. "She's lying," the spirit whispered suddenly. "He can't let me go. Not yet. Not while he loves you." Lila stepped back, her heart pounding. "What are you talking about?" Eleanor's gaze locked on her. "Don't you see? The mansion feeds on his love, on the guilt. You've replaced me, Lila, and that keeps me here." Damian turned to her, horrified. "That's not true." But Lila could see it in his eyes, the guilt, the grief, the endless longing. He had never forgiven himself, and that was the key keeping the curse alive. The man in silver's voice cut through the silence. "So, choose, Mr. Vale. Free her or keep her. But know this, one soul must remain behind." The mirror began to pulse with light. The air shook with invisible power. Lila felt something tugging at her, the same pull as before, dragging her toward the glass. She reached for Damian, but he caught her hands. "No," he said. "It's me she wants." Tears welled in her eyes. "Then let her have me instead. You've suffered enough." Damian shook his head. "You don't understand. I wished forever. If you take my place, you'll live that wish too, trapped here, reliving it endlessly." The man in silver's laughter filled the corridor. "The choice is made in love. It cannot be undone." Eleanor's voice broke through the chaos. "Damian, if you love me, let me go." Lightning struck somewhere above them, shaking the walls. The glass cracked wider, light spilling out like fire. Damian looked at Lila, her face pale, her eyes full of tears. "Whatever happens, he said. "Don't forget me." "Damian!" Before she could finish, he stepped forward into the light. The mirror swallowed him whole. The sound that followed was neither thunder nor wind, but the deep, final echo of a heart breaking.
The mansion was silent. The air shimmered where the mirror had been, a faint glow still pulsing in the dark. Lila stood frozen, staring at the spot where Damian had disappeared. The silence felt alive, heavy, listening. "Damian?" she whispered. Her voice echoed faintly, swallowed by the emptiness. The storm outside had passed, but thunder still rumbled in the distance, soft and far away. She took a step forward, her heart pounding. The mirror's frame remained, but its surface was gone. No glass, no reflection, only darkness. She reached out, her fingertips brushing the empty air. It felt warm. Then came the voice. "Damian." It was faint, distant, and full of sorrow. She spun around, searching. "Damian, where are you?" The whisper came again, from all around her, from the walls, the floor, the air itself. "I'm here." And then she saw him. His reflection flickered across every piece of broken glass scattered on the ground. Dozens of tiny images of Damian Vale, trapped inside each shard. His expression was calm, almost peaceful. "I had to end it," he said softly. "It was the only way." Tears blurred her vision. "You promised we'd face it together." He smiled faintly. "You kept your promise. You stayed." She shook her head, falling to her knees. "No, Damian, you can't stay there. There has to be another way." The bargain was made in love. Only love could break it, and only love could take its place. The air around her trembled. The candles flickered back to life one by one, filling the corridor with golden light. On the wall beside her, a portrait began to change, brushstrokes shifting until it became a painting of Damian, standing beside the broken mirror. His eyes in the portrait seemed to follow her, gentle and sad. "Tell the world I wasn't cursed. I was blessed. To love twice in one lifetime." The light faded from the mirror frame. The reflection dimmed. The silence grew deep again. "Damian!" But he was gone. Lila sat on the cold floor for a long time, her tears falling onto the shards of glass. The first light of dawn slipped through the windows, painting the marble in soft gold. When she finally stood, she noticed something strange. The mirrors along the corridor were gone. Every one of them. The curse, it seemed, had ended. And yet, the house still hummed faintly beneath her feet, like a sleeping heart. She turned toward the staircase, her breath catching. At the top of the stairs stood Eleanor's ghost, her veil fluttering softly in the breeze. But this time her eyes were clear. No anger, no sorrow, only quiet peace. "Thank you," she whispered. Lila took a step forward. "Where is he?" The ghost smiled. "Where he belongs. Between time and forever." Then she faded into the morning light. Lila walked through the mansion one last time. The air was lighter, almost gentle. But when she reached the front doors, she paused. Because faintly, through the silence, she heard music.
a piano playing somewhere deep in the west wing, a song she recognized, the waltz from the night of the ball. Her heart pounded. "Damian?" she whispered. The music stopped, and then, softly, as though carried by the wind itself, "You'll never dance alone again." Lila turned, but there was no one there. Only a single rose lay on the marble floor, fresh and crimson, glistening with morning dew. She bent down and picked it up, pressing it to her heart. Outside, the sun rose over Ravenwood Hill, bathing the mansion in gold. From the outside, it looked peaceful, just another grand house, waking from a long night. But if one looked closely enough, in the reflection of the topmost window, one might still see them, a man and a woman, dancing slowly in the light, their hands entwined, their faces forever young. And somewhere in the wind that moved through the trees, a whisper lingered. Forever means forever.
And so, the mansion sleeps again. Some say the curse was broken. Others say the billionaire still walks its halls when the moon turns cold. But one thing is certain: love like theirs never truly dies. Thank you for listening to the Billionaire's Haunted Bride. If you felt that shiver of romance and mystery tonight, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon, because there are more stories waiting behind the next door. Until next time, remember, even the heart's deepest secrets deserve to be told.